All right, so welcome back to the Semi-Informed Football Podcast. This is Mark on with Mateo. Marco was unable to join us, so we're going to have to wing it. Marco, we miss all your outlines for us. All right, jumping right into it, Mateo. So first off, we've got a Clash of the Titans, a matchup that everyone says should probably be the finals because they've clearly been the two strongest teams. We have PSG, the defending champs. I guess it's a Bayern team that's been absolutely sensational and record-breaking this year. Mateo, what do you think about this matchup?
I think you're right when you say this should be the final. I think it's pretty unanimous whoever wins this will win the full Champions League. But then again, anything can happen in a one-game final. That being said, going into this matchup, it's tough to call a favorite because they're both so evenly matched. They appear like super teams on every front, defensively, midfield, going forward especially. Last year it was PSG who would score goals for fun. Now it's Bayern. I think a few months ago we did Champions League predictions, and I chose Bayern to win the whole tournament because they're so united and there's no real weak links. Maybe you could point at a 40-year-old Manuel Neuer in net, but apart from that, I don't see anyone stopping the brilliance of Michael Olise, Harry Kane's clinical finishing. All these factors together, I think it'll be a great game, but Bayern will pull through, and it's definitely one to watch as a neutral.
All right. So, a couple months ago, I also predicted Bayern would win the entire tournament. I'm going to deviate and be the contrarian. And I'm going to give you reasons why PSG is going to win this. In the Bayern game against Madrid, I was surprised how Bayern did give up those goals in the second leg. So I actually think that PSG is a better team and more balanced team throughout the lineup at every position. I think PSG is better than Madrid, and I just think they're stronger in all positions. So even though Bayern has that crazy attack of Diaz, Kane, Olise, I think at other positions, especially, defensive positions and such, that PSG is better. I also think they have the experience. They're the reigning champions, and Luis Enrique knows what he's doing. So I'm going to give the edge to PSG in this one.
That's fair. But one thing that should be noted is injuries. PSG and Bayern, neither of them are dealing with a whole bunch of injuries, but one key player that's going to be missing from this tie potentially, or at least for the first leg, is Vitinha on PSG. That is a major, major concern, because him and Jean Neves, we know, in the midfield were one of, if not the best pairing in the world last year.
And I believe Desiree Doué is also injured.
Yeah, he's questionable. Bradley Barcola, Fabian Ruiz too. Even Nuno Mendes, he's questionable for the game, so quite a few of them.
Some of that is mind games. It
could be, but one thing's for certain, we got to see this tie because it's going to be a stellar one.
Yeah. Any score predictions for the first leg?
The first game, man. I believe this is in Paris, the first leg. So I think PSG don't lose at home. I'm going to say they actually tie the game. I'd say 2-2. They're going to score something, but allow some.
That is crazy because that was exactly what I was going to say as my prediction.
Wow.
I was going to say 2-2 as well. Yeah.
Got a copycat. Okay, understood.
Hey, second leg, I think PSG takes it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think the opposite. So
we'll
see.
do that prediction. Maybe next week. All right.
Exactly.
Moving on to the second semifinal, we have Atletico Madrid at home to Arsenal. I'll let you start again on this one.
Yeah, so I don't even think this is the tie no one wants to see, and that's an unbiased perspective. I mean, where do I begin, really? Look, I'll just say this, addressing it as a tie. Arsenal are the favorites to go through because of the squad they've had, how they have ambitions of winning every tournament they enter, yet they always find a way to fall short. That being said, we're not in the final yet, so they could still win this and then lose in the final. Nevertheless, I think it'll be a snooze fest for the neutral. It'll be quite low scoring, but I myself am rooting, and I think logically, Atletico will go through on this because of the experience in the Champions League Simeone has with this group, the winning pedigree some of his players have, none more so than Julian Alvarez, and the desire to make their last year under this coach something special.
Why couldn't you just pick Arsenal? Yeah, I'm picking Atleti in this one as well. Arsenal, and I think you've mentioned this before, they're first place in the Premier League, not so much for what they've done, but because of other factors and other teams underperforming.
Yes.
Liverpool underperformed. At the beginning of the season, City underperformed. Villa's had its hot and cold streaks. Man U started off cold before they got rid of Amarim. Chelsea was doing well until they got rid of Maresca. So for a bunch of other teams not performing up to standard, this is what's left Arsenal there. I'll say it over and over again. Their leading scorer in December was own goal. What are they called? Free Kick FC or something like that?
Their corner FC, yeah.
Corner FC. It's just boring football.
Yeah.
And it's not convincing.
Fair.
Yeah, they got knocked out by Southampton. I just think Arteta doesn't know how to manage his players, manage his substitutions. Many people, even Arsenal fans, will say that he runs his players into the ground, into injury. On the flip side, you got a coach like Diego Simeone, who, as you said, has experience in the Champions League, experience with this group. There's a lot of players on this team that have known each other for a while. Of course, the sensational Julian Alvarez. And especially, I think, we all know that Griezmann is going to MLS, and he just wants to enjoy this. And when a player's playing out of enjoyment, I think that's when they're lethal. So I'm going to say Atletico Madrid win this. The other point I want to make is the way Atletico took down Barcelona. Yes, there were some red cards, but I think Barcelona is a much more formidable team than Arsenal. So if Athletic can get by Barca, I'm sure they can get by Arsenal. Not going to say it's a walk in the park 5-0, but believe it or not, I'm going to actually say 2-0 Atletico.
Well, yeah, the first leg is in Madrid, so I think it's definitely Atletico as the favorites there. And bear in mind, too, you're right, Atletico had to overcome bigger teams to get here. Barcelona last in the quarterfinals. Arsenal have had a really, really easy path to this semi-final. It was Leverkusen first, which was even they should have been knocked out, possibly. Going past that, Sporting Lisbon was just the most boring tie in the entire Champions League knockout so far. It was 1-0 and 0-0. So yeah, you're right. There's no brilliance behind this Arsenal team, so I'm gonna go with I'll say only a 1-0 Atletico. So there's some kind of excitement left for the second leg.
All right. Awesome. Okay, moving on. Our next topic of the day is the EPL. We keep talking about will Spurs get relegated? Will Arsenal bottle it again? Mateo, let's start with that crazy game, Spurs versus Wolves. Walk us through it.
Oh, this game had everything. So going into it, if you don't know much about the league, you would just see last place Wolves versus 18th place Spurs. Wolves are already relegated at this point, and Spurs have a hard last 4 or 5 games in the season. This is by far their easiest. If they had any chance to stay up in this league, they had to win this game, and Spurs made it extremely, extremely difficult. They kept trying to press and break through this Wolves back line. Nothing would happen. And bear in mind, this is a team who leads the league with most goals conceded in Wolves. They are dead last. They broke records along the way of how easy they were to beat, yet Spurs couldn't find any solution. Fast forward until around the 70th minute, their most creative, influential player, Spurs, Xavi Simons, gets a serious injury. We now know it's an ACL injury, which rules him out of the entire calendar year up until 2027. After he was subbed off, they were just playing kickball, really, Spurs. And off a corner, bouncing around in the box, Richarlison shoots it. It gets redirected from Paulinho. They make it 1-0, and they sit back to win the game. This, though, was a huge win for Spurs, and you can elaborate on that, Mark.
Yeah, huge win, but, the other game that I was watching at this time was the West Ham-Everton game. So West Ham was sitting in 17th spot, a couple points up on Spurs, and they got a goal just after half, and they were holding it, and they were holding it, and they were holding it, and then in the 88th minute, Everton tie, and you're like, no, it's only 1 point, and then the Spurs result comes in, and you're like, no, and then in the 92nd minute, West Ham, deservedly, scores. Callum Wilson scores, and they win the game to keep that lead over Spurs. So there's 4 games left on the schedule. This one's going to go down to the wire. I do want to point out that May 10th is the day that I've been talking about. That's the day that West Ham plays Arsenal. This one game could actually relegate Spurs and at the same time stop Arsenal from winning the league. So to me, that's my big game on the calendar year.
When you first brought it up to me a few weeks ago, you were looking forward to this ahead of time. And I was like, yeah, we'll see what happens. But as the weeks develop and the table takes its form,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Because it's so tight between West Ham and Spurs for that last safety spot. Only 2 points between them. So, again, logically, if West Ham win all their games, they will be guaranteed safety.
Yeah.
It just so happens that one of those games is Arsenal. And if Arsenal don't win a game, then you would assume Man City would catch them, overtake them, and both teams in North London could be getting the worst possible case scenario at this stage of the season. So West Ham, you can be the true party poopers of the
They
Premier
could be
League.
the winners of London. There you go.
Exactly.
No, I do feel bad for Xavi Simons, especially because in the short time that De Zerbi's been there,
Mm-hmm.
he's really grown to like Xavi Simons, develop a rapport, and he was using him much differently than before.
Absolutely.
So it's really tough for the coach, for the player, obviously for the team on this unfortunate injury.
But you know what? Spurs have had an abundance of injuries this entire year. And I
Yeah.
know it's not only that to blame for their poor season, but I saw somewhere there have been now 12 serious long-term injuries they've suffered this season. And it makes you wonder what the medical staff is doing at the club. Because even when I was watching the game, when Xavi Simons was first hurt, you can see his knee snap in and you knew it was a serious injury from the start.
Yeah.
Yet the medical staff were trying to treat him. They told him to run it off. Within 5 seconds, he's back down on the ground. So there's clearly an issue there with the medical staff, and I think it needs to be reviewed from the board after the season's done.
Yeah. But one thing, and I was reading this online too, I felt the same way with injuries or with Arsenal's win, but Arteta's whole rant after the game is about officials and calls not going their way. But I think it's absolutely bogus for fans, but especially for managers, to blame games on referee calls and on injuries. And the reason is because every team has to face these two issues, these two variables at some point or another, right? Every team has some major injuries. Maybe not this season, maybe next season, but look at Liverpool. Isak was gone for a long time, comes back, and Ekitike is gone for a long time. So the same could be said for other teams as well. So I'm just not a fan of hearing about their injuries or referees' bad calls because it's even across the board.
Absolutely. It's the easy way out, I think.
Yeah. Shame on Arteta. All right. Moving on, just a quick little recap of the FA Cup. So we had Manchester City taking on Southampton. And now Southampton are the ones who eliminated Arsenal, right? But Southampton got out to the lead, and City had to bring in their big guns and scored a beautiful late goal. Nico Gonzalez, 2-1 win.
Goal.
City's going to the final. Then we had Chelsea versus Leeds, and it was a bit of a tight game. I think Leeds should have really potted some. Enzo Fernandez had a beautiful goal. If you haven't seen it, watch the way he runs into the box. The defender's with him, the defender's in front of him. Enzo drops back. Now he's open in front of the net. No one's covering him. Beautiful head.
Yeah.
So Chelsea's on to the finals against City. So by January, no one would have said this, but City are looking at a possible domestic trouble here.
Yes, they are.
The Carabao Cup. They're in the finals of the FA Cup, and if they keep winning all their games, they are going to eliminate Arsenal from winning the Prem. The unexpected trouble. And I think, Mateo, I really do think if they pull off the trouble, I think Pep will leave on a high.
Do you still stand by your previous statement from weeks ago that you think he'll leave the summer?
Yes, I said that in January, and I still think he'll leave. I think winning a treble will allow him, will make an easier decision for him, I think.
Fair, yeah. More like a fairy tale ending.
Mm-hmm.
No one would have expected this come January. You're right. They're so far back, and having another domestic trouble under his belt, it'd be a fantastic way to end it.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll happen though? All three of them?
Yeah, you know what? The way City is playing, if City wins all their games, I don't think it matters what Arsenal does. City's going to win this.
It's true. It's in their hands. The only thing separating them in the Prem is a goal differential, right? And I think it's pretty tight right now, but we both know, Man City is much more of an offensive team and a goal-scoring team than Arsenal is. So you're right. They have their fate in their hands. Will Pep lose it? I don't see it happening, especially against Chelsea. But that being said, this could be their final in the FA Cup to turn their season around, their whole perspective of it. especially under even a new interim coach. That Rosenir is gone, the clown.
Yeah.
So things could happen in the final. It wouldn't be the first time Chelsea's upset Man City in the final. Look back at the Champions League years ago.
So, did you know that that's the last time Chelsea actually beat Man City? They haven't beat Man City since that game, and that was in 2021.
Yeah.
2021. So,
5 years ago now. It could happen, though. It is a final.
it could happen. I just doubt it, though. I doubt it because of the way City's playing. I've always said that, it doesn't matter what sport. In professional sports, the most important thing in meaningful games is confidence. And I think Manchester City's confidence is flying high right now.
So, just to be clear, your predictions for the last two competitions Man City have. Premier League, they're going to win, right?
Yeah.
And you think the FA Cup they're going to win too?
Yes,
That's your prediction.
Yeah.
I believe, not quite the exact opposite, but the Premier League, Man City will win. I think they won't blow this lead after coming back from so far down. They're not going to blow it now. But the FA Cup, Man City have a habit of losing to lesser sides. I think even 2 or 3 years ago, they lost the FA Cup final to Eric Ten Hag's Man U. So it wouldn't be the first time this has happened. I think they're going to win Premier League, but lose the FA Cup. So no trouble for Pep, but let's be real. Does he need it? I don't think so.
But I think in that instance, Pep, hopefully he's grown, but that's when he was tinkering around so much. And I think now Chelsea's a bit at a disadvantage because they just got an interim guy in there.
They definitely are not the favorites going into it, Chelsea. They are behind. But I just think it's happened before. It's not like a thing where Pep's going to prioritize. I think he'll lose the FA Cup just off of gut feeling. But logically, I'm with you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Now, interesting rumor coming out of City was that they're interested in Enzo Fernandez. After all that talk about him wanting to one day live in Madrid, and the clown, suspended him for those 2 games. Yeah. Now the clown's out, and Enzo could be on his way to City.
You know what? Enzo is a fantastic player. I've been a fan of him ever since I've seen him in the World Cup in 2022. I think he has class moments, but I think he's emotionally and press-wise with the media, very stupid. He says things he doesn't need to. Even going back to his Benfica days, when he was saying, I'm going to sign a lifetime contract at the club. I love Benfica. Fast forward a week, he's forcing a move to Chelsea. Now, bringing up Real Madrid of all places, and now Man City. So, I mean, he would do great, I think, but he seems like a headache, and a headache that Pep, of all people, will not tolerate. So if he does go there, it's a sign of what's going to change.
Well, that's because there's talk that Maresca is the one in line to take over from Pep.
That makes more sense. And honestly, I don't know why Maresca got sacked at Chelsea, looking back at it.
Well, I think they said it was mutual. I think Maresca was upset about the interference from the ownership. And I think he's right. Let him do his job. Chelsea would not be in this position if Maresca was still there.
Oh, for sure. This is a team that won the Club World Cup, beating the Champions League winning side, PSG, comfortably in the final. So you're absolutely right about that.
All right. So you were talking about Enzo, and a name came to mind. Who do you think is a better player? Enzo or Bruno Guimaraes?
You know what? I was talking about him a few minutes ago with you, and that comparison came to mind right away as well. So who's better? I think for me, it's comfortably Enzo Fernandez, but who's more of a winner, more of a dog? Bruno Guimaraes is like a pit bull in midfield, but Enzo I think is better.
I think I'd take Bruno on my team.
Why?
Like you said, he's a pit bull. I think Enzo has flashes more so, and I don't think he's as consistent.
Fair, I mentioned moments of class. He has those. Yeah, you're right. A different Bruno I want to bring up, though, quickly, is one who's tearing it up in the league this season, Bruno Fernandes. Yeah. I think recently Paul Pogba commented and said, move this Fernandes to Man City or a different world giant. He's in contention for the Ballon d'Or. Do you think he could ever fit into Man City per se? And if he were to go into a big team, is this claim actually true? Would he compete for the best title in the world?
Yes, I think he would fit in at City. I think City becomes that much better with him. They've been missing that sort of element since De Bruyne left, so they definitely could use a provider like Bruno Fernandes. Would that put him in contention for Ballon d'Or talk? Absolutely. I think it absolutely does. But interesting how you said if he went to a big team, just so all our listeners understand, Mateo is inferring that Man U is small.
Sure, we can deduce that if you wish. Yes. And on that note, I think we're going to call it there. On a brighter note, I do want to mention that viewership and listenership for this podcast has been at an all-time high recently. So on behalf of Mark, Marco, and myself, we want to thank you guys for listening. Be sure to share with your friends as we do our job to keep you
semi-informed.